All right. So thank you all for taking the time and energy out of your busy days to join us for this little nano training to explore rematriation. I know that there are lots of ideas about what rematriation is, and I'm grateful to just share a little perspective of my own and perspective of colleagues and comrades, in the movement. So just want to start by grounding in where we are in this moment, honoring that we're in Huchin, this unceded Lijan Ohlone territory, and commonly known as, more dominantly known as Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda, Piedmont, Emeryville, and Albany, but we're based here, in this ancestral land of these peoples, and just naming the importance of honoring our family that's still here and still vibrant. So what is rematriation? I have a quote here from someone named Jackie Summers, who wrote an article with Medium, and it just touched me, having similar ancestral stories. And so I'll read it. As a man of Caribbean descent, my progenitors were survivors of the indigenous genocide, likely Arawak, and the transatlantic slave trade, likely Ghanaian, both matriarchal societies. And while repatriation means a literal returning to the land of your ancestry, rematriation carries a deeper meaning of returning to a way of life, one that lives with reverence for nature. One of the reasons many men raised in patriarchy object so vehemently to the idea of matriarchy is that they believe women would rule as they do, when in fact, the core beliefs vary greatly. Whereas patriarchal societies tend towards accumulation of wealth, matriarchal societies tend towards distribution and allocation of resources. Instead of consolidating power under one individual, matriarchies lean toward building consensus and unanimity. Where patriarchy constructs social strata, matriarchy nurtures social values. So that's a thought and an experience, but what is it? What is rematriation? What does that mean? Well, our colleagues at Sogorea-Te Land Trust define rematriate as restoring a people to their rightful place in sacred relationship with their ancestral land. Thank you, Janelle, for your beautiful drawing here. It illustrates so beautifully that mindset, recognizing that so often the voices of those who are intending to conserve the land or to restore relationship in some way with the land, those voices are often in this dominant culture drowned out by those who are wanting to make profit in some way. And so as related to this work within radical real estate, rematriation can be said to mean the returning of land to indigenous stewardship, as opposed to centering profit or continued enclosure of land. Rematriation in another way could be said to mean the centering of the place and the stewardship of that place in balanced relationship with the beings and the story of that place. So there's a movement happening, y'all. There's a deep and full, vibrant movement of rematriation happening around the world. And it's especially poignant in this time of fires. Recognizing that in this time, like I said, voices of folks who believe in the enclosure of land and consolidation of wealth, are uplifted. We have an opportunity here as folks working with Selk, and as folks in this line of work, we have an opportunity to be a voice for change. Coming back to California and coming back to these fires, our indigenous family knows this land well, has the tools and the skills for conscious fire management rather than suppression. And they've been here for a long time. Those ways have merely been made illegal by the dominant government. Just a little bit of California history, given that that's where the majority of us are here. This land that's now called California in this particular place of Huchin, land grabbed by the Spanish and then by the US in that westward expansion, forcibly enslaving and killing many of our indigenous family to pave the way for extraction from the land for profit. The dominant economy that we live within in the US period is a continuation of that colonial energy. And a dominant economy spans globally. The mere notion of private ownership today wouldn't be possible without this story. So what could our place be in this new chapter, this coming chapter? What could our place be in this movement? Well, we have the opportunity to contribute to and spread awareness about an indigenous-led land reclamation movement and simultaneously build energy towards collective land stewardship, period, that centers each of our cultures and each of our traditional values. So, what are some legal tools? What are some entities that could support this movement? Well, given the time frame, I figured I'll just speak about two. One is land trusts and the other is conservation easements. So in general, land trust is a private nonprofit organization that works to conserve land. And these are a few examples of indigenous-led land trusts. The Sogoyete Land Trust, the Maidu Summit Consortium, and the Amamutsin Land Trust. And so the Sogoyete Land Trust, the Lijan Oloni peoples, are here in Huchin, this land, like I spoke to earlier, Richmond, Oakland, Berkeley. This land, the Maidu, are in the upper and north and middle forks of the Feather River, up close to Shasta. And the traditional territory of the Amamutsin encompasses counties of San Benito, Monterrey, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara, and San Mateo. So this is an example of a conservation easement that was approved with the Amamutsin tribal band. And so it's on top of Mount Umunhum in Sierra Azul Open Space Preserve. And so I'll just read a little bit and speak a little bit more about easements. So this easement grants the Amamutsin tribal band permanent rights to help steward the mountaintop for natural resource conservation, cultural relearning, and public education in partnership with the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. Just honoring, the easement is honoring that deep relationship that the Amamutsin have had with this sacred site, recognizing its centrality to their creation story. And so an easement is a voluntary legal agreement that protects the land permanently by limiting some uses that would compromise the values. And it allows the landowners to continue to own, continue to use, continue to sell that land, but the easement grants those permanent rights moving forward. And recognizing that no two easements are alike, there's a beautiful opportunity to create in new ways the kind of agreements that we can have moving forward to support our indigenous family and becoming deeper and deeper stewards. So I'll close in that, just recognizing that in feeding this movement of rematriation, often I hear more and more, I hear land acknowledgements, and just recognizing that they're one step. Another one, the Sogoyete Land Trust has a shumi tax, a land tax, a property tax for folks who live here in and on this land to support their movement in reclaiming ancestral lands. That's another way, paying a tax or some way of contributing monetarily to these efforts where we live. And another is allying and being a co-conspirator in supporting our family in meeting their needs directly and asserting their right to sovereign land in their ancestral home.
Awesome. Thank you, Adelaja. That was so informative. Do we have any questions or or answers to these prompts that Adelaja has here on the screen.
I'd love to hear if anyone here is working on something related to rematriation.
Janelle, would you like to say something about social justice easements?
I could. I also see that Raquel has a question, but maybe are you not able to?
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Well, it's in the chat. Raquel, are you not able to unmute?
No, I can. I just didn't want to talk over anyone else. I was just going to ask for the conservation easements. Adelaja, you mentioned that the legal agreement allows this. Does it allow the same owners to like have ownership and control over that land, but just grant stewardship rights to other folks? Or yeah, I was just confused on the ownership versus stewardship responsibility.
Yeah, my understanding, and others can chime in, who have worked more directly, because I've not directly worked on a conservation easement. I've only researched. My understanding is that the easement grants particular rights related to stewardship, related to land use. It doesn't confer ownership in any way. And so that land can continue to change ownership, but those rights, at least in this particular case of the one that I presented, those rights are permanent within this dominant legal system. As long as it lasts, they last.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Sustainable Economies Law Center's learned a bit about easements in the last couple of years because we talked about this at Fellows Week a year ago, I think, but many of you were not there. We created something we call a housing justice easement, where there's an owner of a house, but maybe a land trust has the easement, and it gives the land trust the ability to enforce any attempts to like rent it out at high rent or sell it on the open market. And it restricts its use to people of low income or families of low income. And there's a lot of, it's sort of an unusual easement. And so we've come up against a lot of questions about whether it'll run with the land. Can we put affirmative obligations on the owner to do certain things? So we actually wrote an article about it that I could share. It's in the California Real Property Journal. So hoping to gain some more legitimacy for that.
Awesome. Any last questions or comments before we move on to the chewing session? All right. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording. Hold on.